you can get a ton of leads from your ads. But if you're not closing deals, right? Like, life isn't only about branding. It's not only about having 160,000 names in a database, right? It's not that. It's way more than that. And I think that's what's been lost. A true marketer understands that whole process, right? The goal is revenue. Our job is to make it easier to sell. We do that by listening. So what I think the strategy and the absolute goals and how the metrics fit into that longer term umbrella, that's what's missing. But you can't convince anybody of that.
All right, everyone, hello. Welcome back to Product Marketing Life. I'm Sid Kaitan. I'm your host. I'm also a senior product marketing manager at a company called Blue Maps. And I'm really excited to be here today with Aruna Inalsingh. She's a fractional CMO and a wealth of knowledge. Aruna, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks, Sid. I'm super excited to be here and to share a little bit of that knowledge with you and all the folks that are listening.
We know we could use it. So yes, we'd love to just start off with a softball. Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and what do you like to do for fun?
Oh my goodness. I really love good movies. I've become very addicted to streaming. I love great food, but I also like bad food like pizza and chicken wings. I went to school in upstate New York and that's just what we lived off. And I really love to get things done. So my pride and joy is when I'm able to work with a leadership team or just a marketing team or, whether it's product marketing or digital marketing, talk a bit about strategy and then put together a plan to make it happen, have those metrics there. And then inevitably, either the metrics are great and you want them better or the metrics aren't so great and you want them better. Putting the plan together to adjust. That's my nerdy self having a good time.
I was going to say, what do you like to do for fun? Product marketing is fun. So
100%.
I'm going to put you on the spot. What's a good movie you've watched recently or just like your favorite of all time?
Oh my goodness. Okay. This is really crazy and this will really date me, but my very favorite movie is The Sound of Music. When I was a little girl, I loved The Sound of Music and I loved all the music. And it's one of the few movies I can watch back to back and not get sick of.
Okay. Solid pick. Yeah, I also like to ask, what's a non-marketing skill or habit or something you do that just makes you better at the job and everything else you were just talking about?
Wow, that's a loaded question. I used to hate to exercise and now I love to exercise, but not obsessive exercise. Just a way to distract myself so I can free my mind to be clear when I come back to whatever I want to focus on, whether that's product marketing or something else. It's interesting. I found that yoga is the exercise that makes me the most sore. Spin is the one that makes me the most distracted because I love the music. And running gives me that adrenaline high that is really good just to walk away and put myself in a good mood.
I like that. Yeah. They're different states. They take you to different mental states.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we can talk about product marketing.
Would
love to hear just a little bit more about your career journey. I always say everyone has their stumbled into product marketing moment. How did you discover PMM?
How I did was because I ended up on a Slack channel. I was like, oh, I didn't realize I am a product marketer. So that was kind of a weird kind of awareness of this specialty. I'm an engineer undergrad and I love when I talk about getting things done, I like deliverables, right? Whether they're tactile or kind of metaphoric. And I started off working in an engineering company in applications engineering. That helped me communicate with people on different levels, right? So the people that are purchasing agents that are used to buying toilet paper to the people that are like the R&D engineers that really need to understand how your metal and ceramic is going to interact with their chemical. That kind of built me up for the PM track, right? Because it was getting something done while communicating with all the different people that you need to have success. I went, interestingly enough, from big companies. So I worked at Parker Hannifin, Allied Signal, and Honeywell. I went from that to all startup companies. So I moved into the tech space, and that was fantastic because then I was working directly with the CEOs and able to apply the best practices I had from the large, actually it was global 1,000 companies. So I went through that phase, the tech phase, startup tech phase, and then I moved into um, turnaround, right? So publishing, IT, ERP systems, and then boom, kind of ended up where I am here, which is a go-to-market specialist for various companies doing all different kinds of things.
Very cool. Wait, so the Slack story I need to know. What happened?
Actually, it's a kind of a crazy story. So I don't even know how I got on the Slack channel, right? So I was on the Slack channel and they were looking for speakers at an event in Atlanta. And I was like, oh, now, Sid, you know me. I love to speak. I would love to be a speaker. So I signed up, and literally I was the last speaker they signed up. And we talked about product marketing for startups and what you need to do to get over the hurdle of transitioning from concept to prototype. And I had a great presentation. I really enjoyed it to the fullest. And since then, I've been kind of tracking what's going on with PMA. And what's funny is that in addition to your podcast, I also wrote an article that was about understanding just about market research. There are actually two. So one is about market research and market data, which people love, and I love. I told you I'm a little engineer. I love all that data. But the reality is data isn't enough. You can't just dump a spreadsheet into somebody's lap and then say, oh, there's the data. Good luck to you. You need to understand what it means, right? You need context. So context is important with the additional benefit of having a sequence, time series of this content. So what happened in 2020 is different than what happened in 2022, 2024, 2026. So if you're looking at these trends, now you can really understand the meaning of the data. So when you're looking at market research, it's way more than the data itself and the analysis. It's also the trends, the interpretation of those trends, and then the assessment of how you're going to adjust to those trends. Super interesting, super fun. It's that whole thing of when you go to an event and the event is over, then you're like, yay, and you sit back. No, you don't. That's when the fun begins, right? You got to take the names, you got to follow up with the names, you need to understand what they do. So this follow-up and ongoing review and continuous improvement is critical to the life of any PM. The other article I'm writing about, which I've just started and I'm super excited about it, is about, can technology be ahead of the market? And I believe the answer is yes. Because if the market isn't ready for you, you will fail. And there are many ideas. We all can sit down and think of a few where we really love this product and it got acquired by somebody and then it was squashed, right? Because it was ahead of its time. So that's the second piece I'm working on. I also am very excited about this podcast, videocast, because I think that we all communicate in different ways, and communication is so important to learning. Whether you agree or disagree, it's important to understand why you agree or disagree. And that's kind of the kind of culture that I like to bring to the party.
This next article is really interesting. I mean, you think of course, AI and how fast things escalated once ChatGPT, I forgot the previous name, but it was some crazy name, right? And it just exploded. And now because people are more acquainted with how it works, you have this influx of data, and now all those kind of puzzle pieces had to fit for the technology to get adopted how it did. Have you read The Innovator's Dilemma?
I have not. Tell me about it.
That can come in handy with this article you're writing. It's basically the same thesis that sometimes the technology and the market need to fit together. So that's really important. Segue into where we're going a little bit. Would love to hear more about what you're up to now. From my understanding, you're a fractional CMO, and I'm sure some of it is tech and a lot of it has to do with combining technology, market, putting the right products into the right people's hands.
Yeah, and there's an element of where the those companies are on the knowledge scale. Some companies really want to say they're using AI, but maybe they're only using ChatGPT or Copilot or Grok to write stuff, right? And so that is using AI, but AI can be done for so much more than that, right? Automation, workflow optimization, things like that. I'm really lucky because I'm working with, oh my goodness, maybe half a dozen startups, and they all are doing really different things. I consider that lucky because that helps my brain um, kind of get engaged and to grow and to learn. And I'm working with these founders who are very smart in their own right, and they need me to help with their scalability and project management, budget timing, right? Go no go decisions. But I need them because they're the ones that are coming up with these really incredibly clever ideas. Right now, I've got a beauty company that I'm working with, a fashion company that I'm working with, a drone um, manufacturing company that's loaded with a lot of stuff there. I am working with a recruiting kind of firm for fractional CMOs, and I'm also working with a woman that is helping project management and compliance for highly regulated industries, so pharma and financial services, with AI. And that is such a hot area. However, it's a really, really tough one to get your arms around. And that's what she's struggling with. So she's got all these people that are in compliance. She's got all these people that are sitting, for example, in the legal business, but she can't figure out how to get them to grasp the fact that their employees are already using AI and they're bringing AI into that work environment, which inherently means risk, right? To privacy, to security, to data. Um, and essentially, we know as technologists that they need to sit in a private cloud, right? But beyond that, you still don't want to be hacked. So she's trying to figure out a way to integrate what individuals are doing with what the company needs in an environment that isn't 1980, because compliance in 1980 is very different from compliance in 2026. And I'm helping her figure out what her messaging and sound bites should be so that the CEOs, the CTOs, the CFOs, right, all the people that are dealing with risk, are going to embrace what she's offering to get them organize and put a plan in place to manage that kind of unexpected kind of interruption of your standard workflows at these corporations. It's hard. She's having a tough time. So I'm helping her talk through that and figure out the right messaging, and then also figuring out the nurturing engagement streams that go with that. So even if they're not ready for it, we can eventually influence them to be ready for it.
Very interesting. And I love that you get to kind of stay away from the SaaS bubble, right? You have lots of different client diversity. How do you get to that client diversity, right? Like, I don't know, I guess, how do you, yeah, a lot of times, a lot of companies today are like, we want, someone who's worked in the beauty space for 10 years and, was doing this before it even happened. How are you able to sell yourself and kind of get these types of clients?
Well, I myself have been a victim of you're not a specialist in anything, right? So if you're not a specialist, then I'm going to find someone who is. And I get that. I respect that. You have to do what's right for you. What I find is that having common values and having deep areas of expertise that other people value opens doors. That sounds like a lot of hokey words, and I don't mean it like that. Most of my businesses come through word of mouth. So the AI person that I'm talking about, her name is Gila. I got her through a guy that I worked with 20 years ago when we were dealing with the beginning of online trading and the need for nanosecond transfer technology of data packets, right? So that long ago, I get introduced to this woman a year, 2 years ago, and now I'm helping her with her messaging, right, and go-to-market strategy. Whereas one of the businesses is a guy that I met 5 years ago through a company called Justly Markets, a division of Ideanomics. And our goal was to help raise private equity funds. An interesting buzzword right now, right? Kind of going through the roller coaster here with that. He came and said he wanted to raise money. Turns out he wanted to raise money. He had no business plan. I'm like, okay, let's start ground zero, right? So I helped him write the business plan. He's the creative, which is kind of ironic, right? Here I'm the CMO, right? He's the creative in this case, and I'm doing all his back end stuff, all his ops stuff. So the drone business is actually my brother. My brother's been in data and cloud and for a very long time, and was getting bored. And so he started reading about drone technology and the influence of the Chinese drones that are coming in, the concern around surveillance and data gathering, and decided he wanted to, why not become a drone pilot and sell agricultural drones? And that moved into possibly military drones, and that moved into possibly manufacturing in the US. So he needs somebody that he can trust. And that's kind of where all of these things come from. People you can trust, have the right experience, you respect what they're saying, you value what they bring to the party. So I've been very fortunate that way because I do love people. And eventually that leads to opening doors for things that help work-wise.
That's super cool. On your end, I'm curious how you vet and structure these deals. I mean, in some ways, it sounds like you're living what a lot of PMMs dream of or want to do, later in life. So, yeah, how do you on your end, like, if you don't mind me asking, vet and structure these deals as a CMO?
Everyone is different. I mean, I have to tell you, it's kind of interesting. So one of the deals right now is whenever the man has money, he'll pay me. Okay. So you're like, okay, well, and he does. He pays me whenever he has money. Another one is, okay, you get equity in the business, right? So work your little, heart out, and then you'll get equity in the business. Another one is I'll pay for, traveling to um, California for a trunk show, right? As a fashion company, because I've got frequent flyer miles, so I can cover that. You don't have to pay that, right? And you get to have fun. We're going to go out to LA, but there's not a lot of money there. Another one, I'm going to be on his executive board. I'll be his chief operating officer. Once again, I laugh because it's like we all wear different hats, right? Product marketers really do wear different hats. So I'll be that. So everyone is different. I also think part of it is where you are in the kind of financial scale, right? So sometimes if there's no work, like I'm helping a guy right now. This is crazy. He does car transportation. He helps take elderly folks from their independent living, assisted living to their doctor's appointments. And he's looking to franchise, right? So for him, he has to do that. But in order to do that, there's all this business, startup 101 that needs help with. So I'm helping him do all that admin work, right? So, like for that, I will actually be running one of these franchises, most likely here in Florida. But it's like, you kind of have to get the groundwork done first, right? So different kinds of rewards, but I'm at a stage where I'm open to that. In the beginning, there was no way. I wanted what's typically a 9-to-5 job where I would work, 10, 12-hour days, and I loved it. Now it's a little different.
That's so cool. Yeah, you can take bigger risks and
Yeah.
enjoy the diversity that comes with it. Really stretch your brain, like you said, stretch your creativity. So that's super cool. So I guess kind of related is you may have mentioned this a little bit, but what drives you, to do this? Like you said,
Yeah.
you could choose to either be a career person, you could choose to structure your fractional CMO arrangement so you only work with, super vetted startups or whatever. Why go down this path?
Yeah. I get bored easily. And I don't mean that in a stupid way. I mean, generally throughout my career, my first company I was with for 10 years, right? So that's a long time especially these days. But every 2 to 3 years, I would take on a new job. And it was because I have a vision. For example, one of the jobs was we relocated from Waltham, Massachusetts, outside of Boston, down to Sanford, North Carolina, outside of the Triangle area, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, and in doing so, I was in charge of customer service department. And what happened in the customer service department was we had one specialist for orders, one specialist for returns, one specialist for expediting. But the problem was, if the order entry person was really good, then someone might, they might call her to ask her to check on the status of an order, right? Which wasn't really a role. So there was a lot of duplication of effort. So when I moved down to North Carolina, my goal was to make these customer service reps regional, right? So I made them all regional. They all rotated. They hated me because they got really good at one thing and I'd switch them out, after a quarter. But after a year, we had our 4 regions and people were really happy. At that point, I'm kind of done, right? Like in a good way. Like I was down there, we're optimized. We went from reviewing every single order for $50 to exception reports, right? Which was very unheard of at that time. And so then I'm kind of like, I'm done. Like if what does a boss do? So I moved into quality assurance. I actually moved into ISO 9001 in Europe and got the company certified in a year. And then what did I do? I moved into after sales services, right? Got my MBA and I tripled sales in 2 years, right? And then they thought I liked sales, so I didn't. So I left and I went into finance, right? So I kind of like I have this this desire to make things better. And when I do that, what I said, one of the things I've very recently learned about myself is how the interest in learning is critical to me. For myself, it always was true for myself, but also my clients. So I'm not good with teaching somebody something and then they're not getting it, and me teaching them 25 times. I go nuts. This, by the way, is a weakness in me, right? Because some people, if they say just do it, you should be happy. Instead, I'm like, but why can't you learn how to do it, right? It's really fascinating that this is something that keeps me motivated, and so this is how I end up with all of these different things. And I say like I'm the second best generalist, like everybody's an expert and including the expert in being a generalist, but I'm like the second best generalist because I can really jump into a lot of situations and find my feet rather quickly, learn what needs to be learned, tap into all the experts because they're already an expert. Why would I need to be one? But put together whatever needs to be together. For example, I worked at Reed Elsevier. They had one guy who ran their digital marketing in their kind of professional content division. And he had to take some personal time off and nobody knew what he did because he was working with vendors. So they plopped me in there for 4 months. And I literally came out with a plan, documented work, all the different players talking to each other. And the guy was ready to come back and he stepped right into a slightly easier role because he didn't have the luxury of time that I had, right? So he was fighting fires. I kind of came and took all his good work, put it together in a nice organized workflow. We were good to go. So this is what I thrive on, and I'm pretty good at it.
That's a refreshing take on the PMM role and also just like, I guess, life. Really cool. So
Yeah.
I know when we had our one-on-one, we talked a little bit about how like marketing has changed and how this impacts also the way you service your clients today. Let's use marketing with a capital M and all the different pieces it sits with. What do you mean by that? Like what changed? You've seen a lot of things. What has really changed in the last, whatever, few years, a decade?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a weird question because here I am. Oh, I'm CMO, and I'm like, but it's not what it used to be. I think back in the day, there was some sort of opportunity for marketers to take some time to figure out how they could put together all of the support that was required for their sales teams to sell, and the ROI on marketing was much lengthier than it is today. Um, and what does that really mean? Well, once digital marketing came into being, there was a lot of I can get data immediately. If I put that ad out there, then I know how many leads I got from that ad. I don't know if people like funny ads or serious ads. So now we'll do an A/B test and figure out which ad they like. We'll know that within a few days, really, in many cases. So that's great. But then what got lost in that was, well, where are we heading? Right? It's all well and good to know that this ad is better than this ad, but what is your ultimate goal? And so one of the things that people miss is you can get a ton of leads from your ads, but if you're not closing deals, what's the point? right? Like, life isn't only about branding. It's not only about having 160,000 names in a database, right? It's not that. It's way more than that. And I think that's what's been lost. A true marketer understands that whole process, right? The goal is revenue. Our job is to make it easier to sell. We do that by listening. Some things like digital marketing, or so inbound, outbound, right, where you have data, engagement data, click through data, conversion rates. Those are things that can be measured and done immediately. But what a large part of this is, for example, people need to know who you are. Startups forget it. They kind of know, but they don't really know it. So if people don't know who you are, and like, oh, I do AI. Do you know how many people do AI? It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody does AI. It's funny. Those are my initials, AI. But anyway, so everybody does it, but everybody sounds the same. How do you differentiate yourself? You kind of need to put money towards that. Your messaging, your branding. Companies hate that. They consider that a waste of time. You can do branding surveys, but those are really done for large companies like PepsiCo, right? They're not done for startups because they cost too much money. Because basically you're interviewing stakeholders, you're ranking yourself against these other companies. Smaller companies will do it, but you still have to pay whatever it is, whatever, $3,000 to $5,000 to get it done. But that's not worth it. You'd rather put that into software solutions and a list of names. So what I think the strategy and the absolute goals and how the metrics fit into that longer term umbrella, that's what's missing. But you can't convince anybody of that. So part of what I do now is when I go into a company, I might be working on branding and messaging, but I won't explicitly say that. What I'll say is, hey, I can create content for you because I can. And so I'll create content for you. And the content, let's just say it's a white paper, right? Or a green paper. And so now I've got all these sound bites that I can pull out of these papers. I can put them on the website. I can put them on social media. I can put them in email blasts. And look, and I have all this data here, all this engagement. What they're not realizing is part of this is messaging, right? The messaging would be around, I'm solving different pain points, right? So, and what's sticky? What's more sticky? Pain point number 1 or pain point number 2, right? And so now as we're going on, I'm building on the messaging in the background. So then 6 months out from now, a year out from now, we can say, well, I have an idea for a campaign, right? People really seem to like the fact that, project managers don't now need to go and interview stakeholders. Feedback is automatically given in a dashboard that is spit out, once every 3 months. Let's try an ad campaign to see if we can get more people because of that. And that's how it works. Did that answer the question?
I mean, yeah, I love this because I mean that's how I think of it, but I always realize most people don't. It's like
Yeah.
we're like, oh, we need to go off into an island and go create our messaging document, but if it never sees the light of day, then no one's gonna care. Like the messaging document is something you have in your personal Google Drive that you're working on, sure. But in the meantime, we got to ship stuff and give people the deliverables. They very much that's their language. So I
Yeah.
really like that. The other few things I really liked when you were talking about like what's changed was also
Yeah.
where marketing sometimes sits, the board
Yeah. Oh,
pressure, the
right.
valuation.
Yeah.
I think being able to speak their language is so important now. And you mentioned the campaign. I think there was other ways too when we talked about how you let that magic kind of appear over time. Like you do
Yeah.
the deliverables, you build the campaigns. Are there any like good examples or stories you want to share like about this?
Um, wow. I have one, and I hope it's relevant. And you made me think about a million other things, but I'll pause those. I worked with a fellow. He was a Stanford grad, and his company was called iCars with a Z. And he was one of the first online, interface online to buy. So like D2C, right? But with the kind of virtual digital infrastructure, right? So in other words, you could order parts online and it was unheard of at the time he was doing it. And he hired he hired a marketing person and he really didn't like them. So about 3 months later, he got rid of them. And then he met me through a mutual friend, and another marketer, Breakthrough Marketing, somebody I worked with at Honeywell, started her own firm. And so what happened was that he basically, when I met him, he's like, "Oh my gosh, do you want to work for me full time?" I'm like, "No, but I will really help you." He's like, "Nope, I don't want any help. I want somebody full time." 3 months later, he came back. "Aruna, I hired the guy, didn't work out. I need help." I said, "Okay, how can I help you?" He's like, "You sure you don't want to work full time?" I said, "Yeah, I'm sure." He said, "Okay." He goes, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to manage my sales team." I said, "What?" I said, I'm a marketer." He goes, "Yeah, but," he goes, "the reason I can't focus on marketing is because I can't get away from my sales team. And they call me about the most silly things. And of course, I'm the boss, so I have to pick up the phone." He goes, "If you can manage the sales team, then I can focus on what I want." And I said, "Okay, that's great." But then he was like, "And by the way, that actually makes a ton of sense. If you have a good marketer running a sales team, it's the best because they don't want to sell. They want to organize. They want you to sell more, right? They want to put together the pipeline. They want to listen to the salespeople's rejection so they can figure out what the problem is with the messaging and with the product, right?" But guess what? And that's kind of like the good long-term gameplay. But it wasn't enough for him because he didn't felt like I was doing anything, right? Even though he told me it took all of his time, for me, it didn't matter. He's like, "And while you're doing it, I want you to write my website content." I'm like, "Okay." So he felt great. He felt great because he was getting website content. He didn't really care about the other stuff. By the way, the sales team never called me because they didn't really need to call me or call him, right? It was just hand holding. And so he ended up deciding that he had all of these real marketers that were long-term market research people that understood value propositions, USPs, things like that. And that didn't move fast enough for him. So what he said was, "But I still need that because if I don't understand where the market's going and how I fit in, then I'm screwed, right?" So he said, "Okay, so instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep the long-term person." And it was a guy, and the guy and I were friends. And he said, "But I'm going to hire somebody that's a sales enablement person." And so what he did was he hired the short-term deliverable guy and he had the long-term strategic guy. And that's kind of like how I could help him figure out what needed to be done and the outcome, which was what we talk about, right? Long-term strategy versus short-term needs. He ended up selling the business like 2 years later. He got sold and bought out early. It was an early exit for him and did really well. So that also helped him, right? By getting the right things in the right place, it helped him charge forward.
Really interesting. That's super cool. That's a good story. Um, okay, I want to cover something you said because it was just hilarious when you said it, which was how do you kind of wrapping back to where we were before? How does one become a fractional CMO in this economy? What's like different?
Yeah. This economy is a nightmare. I mean, so my last like full-time gig ended about 20 months ago. And I went crazy because remember, I told you I get bored easily, right? So sitting around by doing a lot of nothing is not good for Aruna. And so I had to figure out what to do. So I decided to start looking at just any kind of work. That's how I ended up finding the franchise guy for the car transportation business because I was just looking for work. He wasn't paying a lot of money, but he needed somebody to organize himself. So I'm like, let me at least start there, right? But the reality was I wasn't really I wasn't making a lot of money. And there is a real strange mindset that has to change for you to be okay with not making a lot of money because that's a short-term play versus a long-term play. And that, by the way, I have taken money out of my 401k to pay for stuff because I do have bills. But what I also know is I've been fortunate enough that the handful of people that I'm working with are loyal and they're capable. Now, we all know if you work with 10 startup businesses, only one is going to do really well, right? But I figure if I've got 6, if one of them does pretty well, I'll do well. Maybe not now, but in the future. And even if they don't do well, the network and the relationships and the information that I now can put in my CV, right, they're current, right? And they now I can tell more stories about things. So it was a really strange shift in lifestyle, like not traveling as much and certainly not to any exotic places. But it's really allowed me to understand the value of what's important to me. Right. So right now, like I'm in Florida with my dad. That is important to me. That's more important than some of these other things. But if I can now work for these 6 companies and have my brain engaged, at some point that will pay off. Equity, cash, relationships, and payoffs come in different ways. And it's interesting, Sid, because I mentor a lot of students, and what I say to them is it's really, really important to find people that you get along with, because those people you have so much in common with, and you always will. And they're the ones that will help you find the jobs. They're the ones that are open doors. So don't just be something for the sake of being something. Like find your path, find your community, and charge down that road. That's where the value is. So that's kind of my reminder of that lesson, is what I'm living through now.
I love that. As someone who is currently working full time, I've recently seen the value of just like being myself and making, like you said, those relationships instead of like putting on this corporate face. And yeah, it's done wonders for me. Like you said, it's like these are the people you want to work with. And if you pay attention to that, you get to do more of that. And money can only solve so many problems. Like at the end of the day, you want to work with people you like and you trust and do cool stuff. So if you're
Yeah.
stuck not doing that, then maybe it's not the right place to be in. You have to design your lifestyle, I guess, different way.
Yeah. Well, it's, let's not be naive. I've been thrown under the bus many times. And it's funny. I was just telling somebody yesterday, my most favorite boss was the one who threw me under the bus the fastest and the hardest. Yeah, right. So that's a disappointment, and seeing that side of people is not wonderful. But I also think that in times of stress, you do see another side to people, or you can see another side to people, and you need to understand that too. Because then you can decide how you want to play, right? Listen, there have been times when I said, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to be the worker bee and I'm going to work 9 to 5. And that never happened, right? My 9 to 5 is at least 8 to 6. And then I'm like, you just have to accept who you are, right? That's who I am. And so I have to make sure that I'm working with people that value that part of me.
Super interesting. We covered a lot. Aruna, thank you so much. Like, I feel like I got the tactical marketing advice, but also like how to approach career and strategy. So even more than I could have hoped for. And I'm sure the audience will think that way. Wanted to kind of wrap up on 2 key questions I like to ask every guest. The first one is product marketing is blank. Fill in the blank.
Mm. It's product marketing is a contradiction. And what I mean by that, in some ways, the world is your oyster, right? You can take a product, you can understand it, you can position it, you can do great things with it. It can also hold your hands if you get so caught up in all the steps of what you should do. It can be restrictive. So you have to find that happy balance of making sure that there's not that, that you're able to get both sides of it.
I love that. How can people learn more about what you're up to?
Ooh, I'm having fun too, as you can imagine. I've got a website. My goal right now is going back to how people don't value marketing. And as you said, marketing doesn't, they're rarely CMOs now, right? They fall under operations or they fall under revenue, which is okay. I think that helps build with teamwork as long as marketing is valued and not their priorities aren't shifted to either sales or a kind of workflow structure. So my new website it's called Any Marketing Service, ANI, which is my initial are my initials, ANI marketingservice.com. And what it is it gives people an opportunity to see what marketing is for a little money. So in other words, I literally now, believe it or not, can generally hear most stories and within 50 minutes kind of know what paths to go down to fix the problem. So I offer my services for $25 for 15 minutes, which is like a couple of cups of coffee. So come and talk to me. You get a follow-up like, hey, we talked about this and this is what I suggest you do. And you can walk away and work your magic, or you can come back and ask for a little bit more help. And a little bit more help could be training of yourself, of a member on your team. It can be mentoring. It can be kind of brainstorming, consulting, like, once every couple of months, just to keep things going. Or I can step into somebody's shoes and help you figure some stuff out.
Super cool. I love that offer. And you said you've published a few articles with PMA and have another on the way. So that's exciting.
Yes.
Yes. So I highly suggest people give that a read. Very cool. Well, yes. Thank you so much, Aruna. It's been a great conversation. Looking forward to getting this one live, and see you soon.
Thanks, Sid. Really appreciate the time, and wishing the best to all of our PMA members out there and beyond.
For everyone still tuned in, thanks so much for listening. And if you enjoyed the podcast, please help us spread the word to other product marketers. Thanks again, and have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are.